They trailed Andrew out and brought him into the lift and they shot him. Once in each leg and once in an ankle. Andrew should never have.
The man came out and just told me to lie down. Heard one bang and that was it.
It broke him, it broke his spirit. If I'd have gone, I'd have shot the bastards myself. That's how much I hated them.
I have a great objection to the term punishment because, of course, it implies guilt and it implies some kind of due process. None of that applies. This is vigilante activity.
In the early 1990s, we'd have seen maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes even more patients a night come in who'd been the victims of paramilitary punishment shootings.
There's no doubt about it, it did help to brutalise society. People would take for granted that being shot in the knees and the ankles was what happened to people.
The unpalatable truth is that people wanted to be protected in this way, and that was the reality of the situation.
I have nightmares all the time and I just see them busting in the flat and how he must have felt, knowing what was going to happen. I know he would have been terrified.
Just cause a lady, hello.
There was complaints went into the IRA about him fighting with people, and this in turn led to them threatening to take action against him. Andrew should never have received a punishment for what he done. I mean, in every neighbourhood, in every school, there's always a hard man. There's always a hard man in an area, and they can't go around killing people for fighting.
Andy Kearney, the father of 4, was shot in the legs by a gang who burst into his flat in the New Lodge area. The gang ripped out the phone, delaying the arrival of an ambulance.
Whenever I got the phone call the night he was shot, my first reaction was, thank God, because I was thinking, that's an end to it. He won't have that threat hanging over him anymore. At that stage, I thought, they've given him a flesh wound, you know, they've just shot him in the knees.
They dragged him out of the flat into the lift, shot him in both legs and left him lying there bleeding to death.
He bled to death after the gang had ripped out a phone. Police say the attack was carried out by paramilitaries, but it wasn't sectarian.
It's been claimed the IRA was behind the murder. The Sinn Féin Assemblyman Jerry Kelly said Mr Kearney should not have been killed.
And what would you like Gerry Adams to do now?
To use his power. He has the power to go to the IRA and get them to admit Andrew's murder. I want people to know that Andrew didn't deserve what he got.
They
they range from everything from a relatively minor assault on people right through to the most serious, where people were shot, sometimes in the legs and sometimes in the legs and the arms, and of course on some occasions actually people died as a result of the injuries that they received, particularly from what were referred to as punishment shootings.
I remember attending public meetings, particularly in Leonardon, for example, in the 80s, and I would have been the party's representative in the area at the time, and I remember hundreds of people in those public meetings demanding the IRA take action against criminals in the neighbourhood or people who are involved in antisocial activity. And I remember it wouldn't have been the most popular person in the room by basically saying there needs to be alternatives, there need to be other ways of dealing with this. It's not effective, it's not the problem solver. We need to find other ways of doing that.
The victim profile is one that's mostly young men, aged from about 15 or 16 to 21, 22, which actually is the same profile of offenders generally in the UK and the US. And these are young people who are involved in petty crime, largely petty crime. They're not people who are going to make the headlines at all. They're not people who are, wider society are interested in.
Jared grew up in Davis Flats, like all kids in Davis. Nowhere to play, just run about the balconies. And then he got into stealing cars. My Jared was no angel. My Jared stole cars and drove around all around Davis Flats. Like any father and son, you tried to stop him, but there was nothing in Davis for them. The first time he was beat was for stealing cars. He broke his leg. After that, it made him angrier. It made him more defiant, I would think, against them. In their eyes, he was only a hood. They only beat hoods, they only shoot hoods. But they're not hoods, they're kids. They shoot and beat.
Came from behind me and trailed me down, started beating me with the batons.
Did you realise what was happening at the time?
No. All I saw was the masks and then the big batons. 3 of them went away and the other one, the 4th one, started still hitting me. He just kept on hitting me.
It's not just the physical damage, which can be extensive, amounting to torture, essentially, but also the psychological damage.
This is the lamppost where a 19-year-old girl was tied up last night and jeered at by women and others after she'd had her head shaved and she'd been tarred and feathered all over her head. What would you do if you found your daughter going out with a British soldier, for example?
I would hand her out to the women that took the girl last night.
And have her tarred and feathered?
The attacks on women, and they're usually young women, and that was for fraternising with the enemy. That's to say, they went out with British soldiers, and they were beaten by other women, and sometimes tarred and feathered, and photographs taken and placards put around. That pretty well came to an end in the early 70s because it became impossible to defend what was happening.
John Hume, what do you think of these incidents of tarring and feathering of young girls in the Bogside because they've been out with British soldiers?
Well, they're an extreme and distasteful expression of the very high feeling that exists in this area against the British Army at the present time. And there's secondly a symptom of the deep and underlying problem, which is the root of all this, that there has been a complete loss of confidence in government in this area, a breakdown of law and order, which is a failure of government. And we have been saying this for quite some time, and the only law and order that we have in our area is the self-discipline of the people.
We can trace the origins back to the no-go areas from August 1969 onwards. Security forces were excluded from nationalist areas, and to an extent that's understandable. However, it was then aped by loyalists who also set up their own no-go areas, and over time you had pretty well a policing vacuum.
It became a sort of an epidemic because it spread from Republican areas to loyalist areas where punishment beating started and then punishment shooting started. And there was no reason for that because there was police and you could go to the police and you could go through the legal process.
It might just surprise you how much mistrust there was in loyalist communities towards the police. But when you're talking about punishment violence, I think everyone understands and knows that it's wrong. But when you're living in that community and you're used to that type of thing happening on a daily basis, unfortunately, a lot of people didn't bat an eye about that.
Loyalist victims tend to be older. They also tend to be male. But their older age profile suggests that these attacks are the result of internal disputes within one of the loyalist paramilitary organisations, or disputes between organisations, or individuals who in some way have fallen foul of one of the loyalist paramilitary groups.
There was a thirst for vengeance by some people. Some people were wanting the paramilitaries to do something on their behalf. And I think it's fair to say some paramilitaries acted on their own to go and do what they thought was right to do on behalf of their community. I worked all my life, so I did. I worked in electrical wholesalers when at 16 I left school. I left that there and went working in the building trade with my mate's daddy. Worked with him for years till this happened.
What were the events that led up to the shooting itself? What happened?
I remember being out in a club and I was out with a couple of friends and there was an argument over a girl and I just give a fella a lift down home and I went on up home and the paramilitaries said that I took the wrong side. So it was. And that's why it was over.
So what had actually happened?
I don't really know much about it. Like one of them was going with one's wife or something, or an argument over that there. So it was.
But what the paramilitaries had done, that shot you in both legs with a shotgun.
Shotgun, yeah.
At very close range.
Yep.
It just seemed to be such a severe punishment.
Yep. Yeah.
It is for a purpose. I mean, this is not mindless, it's not nihilistic. It seems to me fundamentally, both on the loyalist side and the Republican side, this is about paramilitary power and control, exercising control over communities.
My experience was if you sat down with someone and asked them directly about punishment attacks, they were not willing to talk about it.
Where do the attacks generally happen?
Well, at night, in alleyways, playing fields, anywhere where you could fire a gun without attracting too much attention.
I was 22 when I was shot. They took me to the street. I wasn't on the ground for them. One of them held my arms up my back. I thought I was getting shot there. Fear God was in me. I was squealing, I was crying. I got shot in the leg. And basically busted my whole femur bone, shreds. I'd have steel pins in it, just heard it. Can't tell the police because they'll just stiff you. That's basically what'll happen, put on your head. Just get the same fear every day, can't sleep. It's always in my mind, it just won't go away.
They would tell people to take a couple of Valium, get a pair of clean underpants, be outside such and such a club at 7 o'clock. And they would turn up there and to be shot.
We couldn't turn to the police if our homes were burgled, for example, or if someone stole our car. You didn't go to the police and report it because the police weren't welcome in nationalist areas, and you wouldn't have been allowed to report it to the police. So if there was things like that happened, you had to report it to Sinn Féin. You had to go to the Sinn Féin centre and report it.
We don't believe that the long-term solution to resolve the problem lies with beating young people. It most certainly doesn't, and that's on the record. What we're saying is that the community, number one, has a right and a responsibility to try and resolve the problem. We also support the community's right to defend themselves against people who would see them as easy prey in terms of burglaries, rapes, car theft, and all of that.
I remember as far back as 1983, an announcement that was made that there would be an end to punishment, shootings and beatings. And that decision was quickly reversed because of pressure from within the communities themselves. At that time, you had I suppose, the real beginnings, the real onslaught of the car crime type epidemic that was happening.
I'm at Ireland's already. I done 12 months in the YOC. And I get out, and then I just out and approached me. And then I had stopped it, and then come and shoot me.
So you were approached, you were warned by the provisional IRA?
Yes, I was warned.
What did they say?
Told me next time ever my name was mentioned or brought up anywhere, I'll be just dealt with. Sure, I always thought dealt with me a slapping or a digging. Never meant getting shot.
You know, a lot of the actual drive for this was coming from communities because, again, in the absence of normalised relationships between the police and community, you know, they were looking for some sort of justice in inverted commas. When it's happening to someone who lives at the bottom end of your estate, quite often the attitude was, well, there's no smoke without fire, you know, he must have done something. When it comes much closer, and particularly when it becomes a family member, then people view paramilitary punishment shootings or punishment beatings in a very different way. Then people start to look for, well, innocent until proven guilty.
My legs, I heard them snapping like sticks or like a falling jigsaw or something.
Just heard two bangs and just felt the coldness of the blood going down my leg and then it started burning, you know.
They laid me on the floor and they put a sack or something in my mouth and then they started hitting me with hammers.
And it wasn't until the late 80s that there was a big effort within the Republican movement to say, stop it, because it's not working. They shot people and they were back at it in 6 months when their legs were working again. It just didn't work.
One member of a family is punished, you know, either shot or beaten or expelled. That damages the relationships within the community. And, you know, you would ask yourself, is that sustainable? And then, of course, particularly as our communities were moving towards the ceasefire periods. The nature of all that debate really sharpened and heightened because, you know, is it consistent? Remember, this thing was placed in the context of a war situation. So if you're moving into a peaceful situation, is it consistent that you would be solely shooting members of your own community?
I had no problem. A good lot of my mates were but I supported provisional IRA, but in the family. Maybe I could understand the first time when he was stealing cars, but we turned then when they beat him.
Backed them up here and Blomkus wanted it left. That was covered to gigs, swings and changes.
Something to do with one of our provisional IRA volunteers. He was gay, and my George used to pull his trousers down, shake his ass at him and says, "That's what you like." Nobody gives a shit about your gay now, like, you know, but they took an offence to it. He was in his uncle's house. I think they were watching a Man United match when they came in and took him out until the scullery, tied him to a chair. Kept his uncle and aunt in the living room and beat him with an iron bar. No one of those things you use on a pneumatic drill to cut concrete and break up concrete. And they made a fucking mess of his leg, like, big time, like. He wasn't the same kid, you know. We were always happy-go-lucky. But when they done that and he was left in a wheelchair, they broke him, broke his spirit. If I'd have gone, I'd have shot the bastards myself. That's how much I hated them.
There was a steady increase in punishment attacks throughout the early 90s, and then a dramatic peak just before the ceasefire in the number of shootings that can be interpreted as perhaps the IRA doing some cleaning up before they knew that they were going to remove the guns from the equation. While the number of shootings may have then decreased, you saw an increase in the number of beatings.
And last night, there was another one, which has resulted in a young man being in the South Tyrone Hospital in Dungannon tonight with a broken leg.
Members of my organisation were not involved in this incident or any other such incident. Now, let me give to you the figures which the RUC provided to my office yesterday. Since the IRA announcement on the 31st of August, the Loyalists shot 14 people in punishment shootings. 14 shot by the Loyalists in punishment shootings. The IRA has shot no one.
So they switched to using baseball bats, hurley bats, cricket bats, sticks. And the injury pattern changed because you were changing from low-velocity handguns, which caused very minimal soft tissue damage, to repeated beatings, which would cause significant soft tissue disruption, fractures, which meant that our work was much more extensive.
After he got beat, the second time, they drove past laughing and all at him, shouting at him in the street, the bastards. Look at the way we've left you, you're not running stealing cars now, spitting at him. They lived in the same district as us. Yeah, they walk past you in the street because they've got, we're provies, you can't do shit, sort of thing. That's what they made it worse. Some of them were neighbours or lived in the same streets as us, and they thought it was funny, because a kid was left crippled. The dogs in the street knew who done it in Jared. I know who done it in Jared. They have to live with it, not me. It was a Sunday, and he was going past the bottom of the street, and I waved at him. We were in the house sitting, and somebody ran in and said he was dead. I just sat there with him in my arms till the police came and an ambulance. But there was nothing I could do. And so the brother-in-law stayed with him. And I had to go up and tell his mum. It wasn't easy.
There aren't many bigger stages than Wembley. To think these guys are getting the chance to sing at the final, it's incredible. I'd love this gig.
We've got an extra special choir master, Ricky Wilson from the Kaiser Chiefs and the Boys.
I've been watching you from up there in the stands, and you are absolutely going to rock Wembley.
Had the paramilitary ceasefires in 1994. So you would expect these to fade out. Rather, they increased and increased.
There was an appetite for violence within the community. Paramilitaries were saying we are being inundated with people coming and rapping our doors and asking for us to do something on their behalf.
There was an absence of political pressure on people who were carrying out punishment beatings.
I stood as an independent human rights candidate in West Belfast, Gerry Adams' constituency, in 1997.
Adams, Gerard, Sinn Féin, 25,662.
I can't actually remember what my vote was. I think it was just over 100 votes. In fact, I was a little disappointed.
Kennedy, Liam, Human Rights, 97, 102.
I do agree there was community support of such attacks. How widespread is hard to say, but certainly fairly widespread.
There was no case of senior politicians, on the unionist side, going in and saying, this is deplorable, the police should arrest the people who do this, and everyone knew who did it. It just became normal.
They should do everything within their powers to stop punishment beatings. I'm going to find out exactly what they are doing and what more they should be doing to stop them.
Is there any ultimatums?
I don't take ultimatums from anybody,
Did she make any
including Secretary of State.
I wouldn't have thought it was high on the agenda. I'm not saying that it wasn't a matter of issue or concern, but it was probably more about the bigger scale issues. We could not make bad people good.
As Victims Minister, do you remember meeting with victims of punishment attacks?
Well, I don't recollect any meeting any individual victims.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you will have heard that Senator Mitchell's
announcement has been made that an agreement has been reached. I suppose, like us, you almost don't dare to hope too much.
It's an indictment, really, of those years and the Troubles when standards completely collapsed, and not just in the ghetto areas, but in the population in general. You just took it for granted. Oh, 3 men were found lying in Ardoyne on Saturday night, and it would be to page 9 in the newspaper.
Today's historic agreement marks a new beginning for all of us in Northern Ireland, on the island of Ireland, and in these islands. It's a day we should treasure. Today is about the promise of a bright future, a day when we hope a line can be drawn under the bloody past.
I had the car all packed up to go to a caravan, and I went round to the shop, and the next minute the car pulls up and pulls me into the car. And I had about something whacked me in the back of my head, and I felt dizzy, you know. And the next minute the car drove for a while, and the next minute I was pulled out of the car and brought over into a flat. They were hitting me with bars, I think, or iron poles or something. And I remember the mans were tied, and I broke actually plastic cable wraps. I broke them, and they done it again, tied me, and when they were beating me and all went and broke them again. And I think I got rope or something, and tied my hands down to my legs like that there. And I was sort of left on a chair or something, and I saw out of the hood the light where the windows were, and I got up and I run to dive through the window, but I bounced off the window and fell onto the ground, and I just started beating me again.
One of the commanders of the IRA from North Belfast was in the bar and was playing cards with a group of fellas at the time. And there was a young lad in the company, and he was only about 18. This IRA commander started fighting with the young lad. Andrew intervened, as in telling him, knock it in the head. You know, he's only a wee lad, leave him alone. And then, seemingly, your man, the commander, was at the wee lad again, and he hit him. The red mist came down, and Andrew was over the tables and chairs, and basically the one dig, and your man was down, and he lost face in front of all of his cohorts, and from that day on, Andrew had signed his death warrant.
They're just shouting, beat me out, we're going to do this, you're going to do this. You're dead, we're going to fix you, you know. You're getting shot dead. And they're just saying, oh, write this letter to your kids, you'll not see them again, and all that there. It's just sort of mental torture with me, like.
But I would like, if I might, to offer my thanks, first of all, to all those who...
2 people, they pulled me down the steps, and they took me over across the road beside the old community centre, and I was standing there, and I looked, you know, the 2 people were away. The next minute I saw who the man coming out and telling me to lie down. I heard one big bang, and that was it.
Andrew told my mummy that he knew they were going to do him, and they were going to do him right. There was 13 people involved in it altogether. Lookouts, girls involved around various points, but there was 8 went into the flat. On a Saturday night, that would have been the night for all the young guys at that age, but he didn't go out that night. He was lying on the settee in the flat with his girlfriend.
The second round of proximity talks aimed at finding a solution to the Drumcree standoff are continuing in Armagh this evening.
He had the child, and the child was lying on top of his chest, and he had just a pair of football shorts on, those nylon shorts.
And the Downing Street representative are again working with the Orange Order and Garbahi residents delegations, but there's no word yet on any progress. The Orange Order delegation...
The three of us were in the living room watching TV. At about 12 midnight, I went into the bathroom and then to bed. I jumped out of bed and saw a number of men in our flat.
Stay in the bedroom.
One of them stood with his back to the bedroom door, stopping me from getting out. I saw Andrew was with them. They were holding Andrew and walking him. I could only see the back of him. They were walking very quickly. I then heard 3 shots. I went out behind him. I couldn't see anyone in the hallway. I went to the lift and pressed the button. The doors opened, and I saw Andrew lying in it.
One of the guys pulled the wires out of the phone so that it couldn't be reconnected to the wall. His girlfriend tried dropping on doors in her block of flats, but nobody would answer the doors because they were afraid after hearing the shooting. So she ran down 16 flights of stairs and ran across to the next set of flats, and that's how she phoned for the ambulance to come.
I was the duty inspector at the time. I ended up attending the scene with a number of police officers and actually went upstairs to the scene and witnessed how the lift had been jammed so that he couldn't get back down and the ambulance service couldn't get up quickly. So it was a pretty horrific scene. The thing that stays with me all these years later is the enormous amount of blood.
One of the shots to the leg tore through the artery. They did bring him to the Mater Hospital and they worked with him for an hour or so before they pronounced him dead, but he was gone before he left the lift.
The finger of blame for the murder of Andrew Kearney in West Belfast has been pointed at the Provisional IRA.
Sinn Féin has said the murder of 33-year-old Andy Kearney in North Belfast at the weekend was wrong. The father of 4 was shot in the legs by a gang who burst into his flat.
I think because of the peace process and the talks that were going on, they knew they couldn't get away with just blatantly murdering him. So they made it look like a kneecapping because it was acceptable for a kneecapping and then to claim that the kneecapping went wrong. And he was shot around midnight. We went back to the house about 5:30 in the morning. And the first thing my mummy says, put the TV on and see what's coming up on teletext. And it came up on teletext within a very short time, maybe half an hour, that there had been a shooting and that he was dead. And the next line said something along the lines of DAAD, Direct Action Against Drugs. And as soon as we seen it, we said they're going to try and label him as a drug dealer. And my mummy says they'll not label no son of mine, not label my child as a drug dealer.
You'd been worried about Andrew, hadn't you, Mrs.
Yes,
Kennedy?
yes.
Why was that?
He got threats last year over a fight. And I went everywhere to see about it. We even went to one of the priests. He went to one of the priests in the monastery. I thought it was all settled, but he always said, I'm looking over my shoulder, Mummy. I'm looking over my shoulder. He never trusted them.
Who were the threats from?
From the pros. These people that are going about personal vendettas who claim to be provos, INLA, loyalists or whatever. And if they don't like you, well, you're dispensable. He was just... Not to me or his family, but to them.
You had no doubt the moment that it happened it was the IRA that was
Oh,
responsible?
yes, yeah, no doubt at all. And we knew who was responsible right away. We didn't need to be told, we knew who was responsible.
Well, I don't know who was responsible, and whoever was responsible, my position would be the same, that it is a terrible killing and it should not have happened.
Gerry Adams landed at the door. So we only had sort of 10, 15 minutes notice that he was coming. You know, someone came and said, Gerry Adams is coming up to see you, is that okay? My mummy said yes, and she welcomed him in with open arms. And she had been very, very fond of Gerry Adams.
As I said, I've been Republican all my life. And I went to top people and they all assured me then, no, no, no. It's not on, it's not us. But I defy them to come and tell me it's not us. They'll have to prove it to me. And I'm speaking as a Republican.
The first thing that he said was that he was extending an apology from the top of the Republican movement.
He didn't seek to try to deny that the IRA was responsible. He was accepting the IRA was responsible and said that to you.
Oh, yes.
We don't know who was involved in that. We have no evidence to suggest anyone, including the IRA, was involved in it. What I do know is this tragedy for that family, a man's dead, and that never should have happened.
But usually Republicans are well informed about what's going on in their community. People are somewhat surprised at this time. They seem to know nothing.
Well, I mean, we're living in very strange and complicated times. What we do know, I am certainly satisfied.
Gerry Adams, he asked her what she wanted. And at that stage, I don't think my mummy was too clear about what she wanted, other than the fact she wanted justice. She wanted them handed over to the police and for justice to take its course in the line of the courts. But I think at that stage he told her that it wouldn't happen, that they wouldn't be handed over, but that they would deal out any discipline that was forthcoming from them.
Have you spoken to Gerry Adams about this case?
I haven't spoken to Gerry. I mean, I haven't seen Gerry Adams in the last couple of weeks, so I haven't spoken to Gerry Adams about this case. I mean, around about the time, I was aware that he went to see the family. I was aware of that at the time, of course, and he made that public as well. But I mean, I haven't spoken to him in any detail about this case, no.
So you're aware that we were going to talk about Andrew Kearney today, but you didn't talk to him about the issues arising out of the questions that the Kearney family have?
No, because you're going to ask me about what did Gerry Adams say or what did Gerry Adams do. I can't speak for Gerry Adams.
The commander was stood down, and basically within a couple of weeks, I think within just 2 weeks, he was sent overseas, he was sent over to America, and he stayed there for a while. And to me, it was just a matter of not being stood down as such, but keep your head down, take yourself off, go on a holiday, and when you come back, this will have all blown over. And that was the intention at the time. But 16 years later, it's still going.
Using a shotgun, of course, that would do maximum damage. I remember waking up in the hospital and the doctors were just telling me, look, we had to amputate. You took a heart attack on the table and we had to bring you back again, and we couldn't take the 2 legs off at that time because it was too weak. I was in hospital for near a year. I had to make a decision to take my other leg off. So I did, and that was hard, like.
Over the years, I'm sure many names have been told you about who was involved and what they did to you.
Yep.
But would you ever consider going to the police with those names?
No.
And why not?
Because I've got a family that you can't do yet.
You would be afraid for the safety of your family?
Yep.
So you have to live in the knowledge that these people, what they did to you, but you could never seek justice for this?
No.
Too much of a risk?
Too much of a risk, yeah. Probably most people in loyalist areas or Catholic areas would feel the same way.
It was wrong. It was wrong in the 1970s, it was wrong in the 1990s, and it's wrong today. But instant justice was what people wanted, and they didn't want it tomorrow. If they went to the paramilitaries, they got it there and then. What we tried to do was, rather than just condemn, come up with an alternative that would be put in place that everyone could buy into. And the alternative turned out to be victim-offender mediation, where victim and offenders sit down around a table and come up with an agreed solution.
People with a human rights background, people with a youth background, instigated a debate with Republicans to say, look, how do we change what's happening? The shooting, the expelling, the punishments aren't working. They're not changing people's behaviours. So how do we develop a different approach?
It's complex and it's multifaceted, the reasons why community restorative justice developed. But there's no doubt that actually, the whole idea was, the development of a different type of response within communities.
I observed members of Sinn Féin are publicly supporting non-violent alternatives, actively seeking to engage with community restorative justice projects in a desire to move away from physical punishment towards some alternative to the state, but it was still an alternative to the state.
We asked him for help, that so much time had passed, Sinn Féin were secure in the peace process. There wasn't going to be a big fallout anymore if they came public and admitted Andrew's murder. So we felt that now was the time.
To go public. Admit that IRA.
Yeah. To basically come out and publicly admit that the IRA were responsible for Andrew's murder. And when we told Gerry Adams what we wanted, his answer was that they couldn't go public at that stage, but that he could get in another investigation and would give us answers to our questions.
One of the reasons why I wasn't going to do this interview was because I precisely knew that I would be in a position where that family may well feel a slap in the face for a second time as they would say that. And therefore, that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do this interview. You're putting me in that position. You cannot expect me to answer for Gerry Adams. You cannot expect me to answer for an IRA. You cannot expect me to challenge or refute the comments and the assertions made by Andrew Kearney's family. So, you're putting me in a position. So I would say, you're putting me in a position, not me. I'm answering questions honestly and faithfully that I can to you. All I'm saying is, I'm not aware of the details of what happened around Andrew Kearney, because nobody ever made a statement or made a claim around that. I can't offer you an insight into what Gerry Adams said when he met a family. It's up to Gerry Adams to tell you what he said to the family. So, you're putting me in a position, and then you're going to accuse me of acting in bad faith to the family.
Some people may be surprised that you haven't tried to get any detail.
Because I'm not going to be a second-hand messenger.
We met up with members of the Provisional IRA, and after asking lots more questions and sort of getting the runaround and being told nothing, basically, we brought it to an end, and we knew it was a whitewash. We knew that they weren't interested in bringing any sort of closure to the family at all.
How do you feel about Gerry Adams now?
I don't think very much of him, simply because I think he is two-faced. I've no other way to describe it. He told us, he spoke to us in a way that he thought would placate my mother and then myself, and that it would be the end of the matter. I think he was working to his agenda in that he wanted to shut us up. He appeared to us to be genuine, but at the end of the day has done nothing. He should have told the IRA what to do, as in to come forward and admit it publicly and just give a public apology. If they're going to go down the peace road and call for truth and justice and all the rest of it, then it applies to all sides.
That was carried out by Republicans in a way in which the Kearney family say, and I would apologise as a Republican for that happening to them, because it shouldn't have happened, quite clearly. The difficulty that we're in, we're trying to establish a means and a mechanism by which people can bring forward information to give families like the Andrew Kearney family the truth of what happened, the information around what happened, to give them at least something by way of a measure of comfort or closure or that acknowledgement.
After what happened to you, did any politicians, anybody from the DUP or the Ulster Unionist Party ever come to see you?
No.
Did anyone ever offer you any help?
No, not really, no.
Were you surprised by that?
No. The only help that I got was a wheelchair from my National Health, and that was it.
After George's death, did anybody from Sinn Féin, any local councillors, did anybody come and see you or your family?
Sinn Féin? Nah. There's a girl, I forget Mary's second name, SDLP. She came and seen Mary. She lives in Durham Street. She was the only one.
And the British and Irish governments, what have they done?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't support dissidents in any shape or form because I don't believe that we can go back down that road again. I think that time has long passed. I would support what Sinn Féin's doing, and any time I have spoken to them from that, I have told them that. If and when they do something to help me and help the Kearney family, then we will do everything we can to help them. Andrew's death was collateral damage. It shouldn't have happened. They should never have allowed it to happen. And from Andrew's case, there have been more punishment attacks, and they should never have been allowed to happen.
If you've been affected by issues raised in this programme, please see RTÉ Airtel page 701, that's page 701, or online at rte.ie/Airtel.